Hey, welcome to another episode. I just had to show you guys the new vehicle for 2020. It was actually something I'm really proud and excited to actually own among all of my other cars. But now we're going to go back to our scheduled programming with the Starquest help. So we're going to jump back on this yellow Quest and get some more work done. Okay, so since we have fuel pressure and it is consistent, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to raise the fuel pressure all the way up to about 70 psi because I want to make sure that this rail's not going to leak when I start boosting and so on and so forth. So to alleviate a fire later, we're going to take a little bit of precaution and get this pressure going on with this fuel rail. So I'm going to grab an Allen key, and at the top of this guy here, I'll be able to raise the fuel pressure. So we're gonna start with getting the pump turned on. Alrighty. All right, so the pump is on. No leaks, everything's looking good. And now we're going to raise that pressure. This is a two-handed job, so I will be right back. Okay, so I was only able to get up to 50 PSI, which is really good for not having the car running. Of course, with the alternator going, the voltage is higher than the possible 11 point something volts that this fuel pump is receiving right now. So, in general, there was no leaks, which is great. So I feel pretty confident that this should be perfectly fine for the test drive. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to jump into the computer and start programming and seeing what's on this computer and get it ready for the first fire up. Okay, so I am plugged into the computer. Got the cord out here. Let me turn down the light so we can actually see something. Okay, so this is the Microtech, and we already have numbers in here, which is great. We are not running any extra injectors. So past 0, we enter programming and we zero this out. So basically, the computer knows that this is all happening on main fuel supply. So I'm gonna zero all of this out. And then these numbers are based off of the injector size. So for instance, I believe these are 1,000 cc's or 1150. Take a quick peek in here and see. These are 1255 cc injectors, which are quite large, but will definitely do the job. My injectors are, I believe, 2000 cc Bosch. So I definitely can't speak. So anyway, let's see. So I'm gonna zero all of this out. And this is the idle map. This is not the category that I'm doing here, but from 0 HG and down. This is your idle map and cruise and deceleration map. So I'm going to pretty much cover all of that as soon as I finish emptying this out. Alrighty, so there we go. So this map that's already on here is not too bad, but I want to pick up this area here, which, let me get out of programming and move on to the next map. Okay, so, all right, this looks pretty decent. I would say when it goes past 5 and 7, this should probably be at the 20 PSI mark, but we're gonna drop it down because our injectors are quite large and we don't want to flood the engine. So we're gonna do something like that and take it down. And there's a slope here that pretty much gives you an idea of what you're doing. And you wanna kind of follow that. I'm making a new graft. So let me do that real quick, and then I'm going to take a peek into settings, and we should be good to go. Yep. Still adjusting the slope. So the load is technically whenever you touch the gas pedal, so we are going to adjust this to where it looks about right and not so aggressive with the fuel, because you can easily flood the car out. So let's check some settings. All right, so TPS scale, that is our TPS right there, and that is supposed to say 0, so you just scale that back a touch. And I'm gonna test the TPS to make sure it is functioning properly. I'm getting 100% and everything like that. I want to set a rev limiter in here so I don't over rev. Alrighty, rev limit. We're gonna set that to 6,000. That is the factory rev limit for a stock engine. Let's see, boost cut, we're not gonna do that. Alrighty. All right, so this is what I was telling you about here, where you can set up your injector fire order. So right now it's set up to sequential, so it should come out really good. If it doesn't, then I'll be able to swap the injectors around, and it should be pretty simple. All right, and also we're reading off of the map sensor. You could set it to either map sensor or TPS. So we're gonna have that go off a map. Nope. This is for if you have a dash unit, it will flash, you know, and let you know to shift. And these are warning lights. So if your water temperature passes 99 degrees Celsius, it's gonna turn red on the water temperature part. So that's that. And because we don't have water in the motor currently, we're not gonna leave it running for too long, but we are gonna start here in a few minutes. Okay, so I'm gonna do a test fire just to make sure everything is functioning properly. First, let me see if we got TPS, which is important. So it's in on position. Oh yeah, look at that. That's beautiful. Okay, so that's good. Make sure it's not in gear. All right, e-brakes up, here we go. Okay, no bueno. First fire. No fire. Gotcha. Okay, so I did a little bit of digging and come to find out that that computer there is a fuel and ignition computer, and it's waiting for a sine wave to know when to fire the injectors instead of a magnetic pickup. So, for instance, this is Old Faithful here, all right? Mine is a fuel-only computer. So when I start it, it's waiting for a magnetic pickup. So the yellow light on the computer signifies whether it's firing the injectors, which is very important. So car's on. The yellow light flashes. Okay, here we go. All right, so that lets you know. And there is no indication on the computer that will let you know whether it's fuel or fuel and ignition. Each one of these computers are custom made from Australia. So, with that being said, you have to make sure if you're purchasing your computer used, like this car, you have to make sure that you know exactly what car it's coming from to decipher whether it's fuel only or fuel and ignition. So, this computer was purchased brand new, so I had it set up specifically for this engine. Okay, so sometimes you have to go backwards in order to go forward. So I put coolant in here, and after that, it was coming right back out in under this area, and a little bit of leakage from that hose. So I'm gonna put some water in there so you can see exactly what I'm talking about, and maybe you can see exactly where it's coming from. But long story short, the intake manifold has to come off because the surface of this flange is not flat. Imagine that. So, okay, so we see leakage from there, a little bit over here, definitely a lot coming from the bottom of here. Can't see where that's coming from too well. So, leaking from there. Leaking from there. Pouring out from there. It's just raining. It's horrible. Okay, we got the unit out. And what we're gonna do is we are going to fill this cavity and this cavity up with water and see what we get. So, I'm gonna use some of this painter's tape just to simulate this hole being closed and filled up with water. And we will take it from there. And also, same deal with this, cover it up with painter's tape, and I'm going to fill this unit up with water and see what we get before we resurface, which probably needs to happen anyway. But let's give that a shot, see what we get. Okay, so I ran the test and it seems to be okay in this area. Of course, I'm gonna see as soon as I bolt it back down. And same deal here. So I Teflon tape that one, Teflon tape this one, and I resealed this part up here. So I've pretty much sealed as much as I can seal. I'm going to reinstall this intake manifold and put some water in it and see if I have no leaks. Hopefully I don't. We'll see. Okay, so we are back together and I filled it up with some water and it is 90% sealed. So everything I did in this area is 100% sealed. It seems just this hose right there is the culprit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to cut that hose down, shorten it down a little bit, and add a different kind of clamp and reduce it properly. And that should be good. So next on the agenda, I have to get this intercooler pipe started. So I'm gonna pull that out the box and yep, let me see. So it'll come out right there. Got a hole there. I might have to widen that hole. And we're missing a hole on this side. So I'm gonna use my hole saw, cut that part out, start mocking some intercooler piping, and we should be good to go. So I'm going to grab that. Okay, so this is our kit. We have to start running the piping for the intercooler. It includes also the boots and couplers. And you could definitely get one of these kits yourself. They have them in a couple different variety of sets on eBay. And they range from $100 to $200. And you could chop these up to make any, bends or corners you need to make. And it ends up pretty good. This kit I have on my personal car is actually from eBay. So I had to chop what I had to chop and make the bends I had to make, but I've been using it for, I want to say 4 or 5 years now. So no complaints. So, yep, so let's get some ideas of what's going to go where. So let's grab a couple of these pipes. Let's grab these two just for now. Get an idea of where everything's going to go. So the first one, and I want to do turbo side first, I think is going to go something like that. It's going to be under here. So it would be right up in this area, but standing up. So this has to be cut. I actually might port this hole out so it's actually a little bit bigger so I can fit the pipe through it. And then over here, we want to do, and we're going to move the power steering also, but we want to do something like that. So we get a boot over here. We get a piece of straight to go straight through here. And I believe this side will be done. So I need two 90-degree for the turbo side. So for the, let me see, for the intake side, let's get another one of these 90s. We're gonna do something like that. Come through, have a soft 45 to run to the throttle body. Let me grab one. Oh, actually, here we go. So it'll go like that, just to give you an idea, so you can see where the pipes are running. So you see that, straight to the throttle body, straight to the intercooler. Very simple. So not as many pipes are going to be used. Now, these need to be cut. They just need to be measured. And I'm going to take it from there. So I'd say the easiest pipe would be this one, which I might need to cut right in this area. So it'll make the run over there. And then this, of course, this is going to be shorter, but it should come out right about here. I might have to cut both ends to get the angle I need. And it should connect or butt up, I should say. Just like that. All right, cool. That looks pretty good. Also, before everyone forgets, you can't just run a turbo with no blow-off valve. Now, don't get me wrong, you can, but your turbo won't last too long doing so, especially these eBay units. So, what we're gonna do is, I think we'll run a blow-off valve on this side, so I can cut a piece of pipe out. The owner can choose what type of blow-off valve he wants, and it could be plumbed in the vacuum over here. So that'll be easy enough. So we got to keep that in mind when we're putting together the piping on the turbo side. Food for thought. And thank you guys for joining me for this episode. I'm going to see you next time. And next time we're going to chop up some intercooler piping and move on to a couple of other items that need to be addressed on this car besides the obvious, the computer. So join me for another episode. I'll see you next time.